Hello. Today we visit r/AskReddit. What's something that was supposed to be the next big thing, but absolutely flopped? Make sure to comment any flops you can think of. With that, sit back and enjoy. The Segway. Too fast for the sidewalk, too slow for streets. It's about as fast as a bike, I guess. But the thing is, something else that is as fast as a bike is a bike. I don't really see what new benefits Segways brought that motivated the hype. Bikes are great for purely covering distance if you are able-bodied. Segways have no balancing problems at low speed and are usable by a wider range of people who may not be able to ride a bike everywhere. Certainly not a replacement, but they fill a gap. It was built up so much, and at the reveal one of the hosts really was like, "That can't be it." I remember watching the 60 Minutes interview before the actual announcement. There was so much hype build-up for so much letdown. They made it sound like it was such a revolutionary technology that it would change the world. People thought it was perhaps a new type of high-speed super-efficient computing for internet usage. Nope, just some stupid ducking electric scooter that costs several $1,000s, weighs a ton, won't fit in most people's apartments, and too heavy and bulky and awkward to transport in a regular car easily. Eventually, Chinese hoverboards came out which did just about the same thing but at a tiny fraction of the price, but these were pretty much relegated to children's toys rather than some new way people will travel. Unfortunately, a lot of them had faulty batteries that burst into uncontrollable lithium fires, so now it's just evolved into the hoverboard, a Segway with no handlebars. More fun. More danger. We have one wheels now. Superior in every way. Saw one in the wild earlier this year. Nifty, but you'd never get me on one. I can't even ride a unicycle. Apparently there's an animal control agency out in the northwestern US that uses them to scare elk from the roadways and prevent traffic jams. The officer that was interviewed said the unnatural movement was enough to startle them. Google+. Everyone thought it's gonna be the Facebook killer, now it's just a history. I really liked the circles feature of Google+. You could have a friend circle, a family circle, a work circle, whatever you wanted. And then when you posted, you chose which circles saw the post. Seemed like a really smart way to do a social media platform. I'm surprised no one else has done something similar. I thought that Google+ was superior in every way to Facebook. Like, I really and truly liked it. It's such a bummer that it just didn't go well. The launch was mishandled in a lot of fundamental ways. First it was invite-only. Then they realized that meant nobody was on it, so they tried to force everyone onto it by integrating every YouTube account, which just caused confusion and resentment and, critically, just added accounts, not users, because none of those people had made their YouTube account with the intention of using it as a general social media account. It didn't help Google+ that they basically forced you to sign up if you wanted a YouTube or Google account. I refused to even try it after that BS. The real problem with Google+ was that everyone was already on Facebook. Leaving the social network where all of your friends are to join a social network with no one kind of defeats the purpose of a social network. What they should have done was allowed you to beef up your Google, Gmail, and YouTube profiles until it was a social network in everything but name. Edit, since the most common response is, that didn't stop Facebook from killing off MySpace. That's not really what happened. The average person just didn't have social media back in 2004. MySpace only had 1 million users at the time. People creating Facebook accounts in 2004 were largely creating social media accounts for the first time and joining the site all of their friends were on. It wasn't like the world was on MySpace then everyone left to join Facebook. 3D TVs. 3D movies in general. When the new 3D started becoming a thing like 10 years ago, Popular Mechanics released an article talking about how 3D technology was going to reinvent how we watch TV and movies. At the end of the article, there was a notation that said the article was originally printed in an issue of Popular Mechanics around 1983. It was just showing that while technology has become better, it was still too early to suggest it was going to reinvent anything. Someday true 3D will be invented with true eye focus, allowing us to focus on things we want to on the screen like we do actual three-dimensional objects. Until then, I don't see 3D becoming the way we consume movies and TV. Even then, I think AR or VR is more likely to change how we watch things. I love how you can watch any movie from that era and you can tell a scene was shoehorned in to be the big draw 3D scene. Usually a character launched up towards the screen, where things go slow motion while they hit the peak of their launch before falling back to the ground. Probably getting launched with several objects, characters to really show the depth. There was this lady who said laboratory testing could be reduced to a machine the size of a microwave. Turns out it was all a scam. Scary how many high-powered and big-name people fully supported her without ever seeing a working product. They were convinced that the female version of Steve Jobs was going to be successful as a brand, regardless of the quality of her products or services. That's why she was the face of the company. Any technical questions were answered with some vague futuristic utopic story, purely made to lead on the investors and clients. Google Glass. I think Glass will have a resurrection as an industrial tool rather than an everyday accessory. The 2.0 version is heavily marketed towards business, and having AR overlay would be incredibly helpful in fabrication and QC. This is what happened to the Kinect. It oddly enough found interesting uses in the medical or commercial world. If you ever find yourself in the Bay Area here in California, the Monterey Bay Aquarium uses them in the kids area for some neat educational exhibits. It was pretty funny seeing what I thought was a dead tech item being used for an educational use. Quibi, the streaming service with 5 to 10 minute long TV shows meant to be watched on mobile. They spent nearly $2 billion, recruited a list celebrities, were run by a former Disney executive, co-founder of DreamWorks, and completely tanked within 6 months. I believe they try to blame their failure on the pandemic, but realistically, this is what happens when a bunch of out-of-touch media executives get too into being data-driven, and think they can synergize and scale their way into being cool. I have worked with this particular kind of star ducker executive, and it was so satisfying and validating to see this stuff fail. Isn't that basically YouTube, except all the content would be created by Hollywood executives, I guess? Yes, and you had to pay monthly for it. And you can only watch it on your phone, which means you can't idly browse Twitter or text anyone while watching. They never made a TV app. I loved that they tried to blame the pandemic. The thing that forced people to be on their phones all day. It was part of the problem, though. The niche they were trying to fill was your 5 to 10 minute bus ride and other on-the-go waiting periods, and that niche was obliterated when people were suddenly staying home and had hours of free time they needed to fill. Granted, I don't think Quibi was a good idea, as those 5 to 10 minutes of dead time throughout the day are already owned by social media. However, they did launch with an expected niche to fill in mind, only to have that niche completely disappear due to a totally unforeseen circumstance. Amazon's Fire Phone. Amazon Fire Phone sucked. I just bought an Amazon Fire TV and I like it so far. I'm just waiting for the ads to start rolling in on the home screen, though. It was cheap, 4K, and does the job I wanted to do. Time will tell. I bought a Fire TV about 4 years ago and I hate it. Banner ads at the top when I turn it on. The UI is really buggy. There's not a source button on the remote to just quickly change between HDMIs or other inputs. Crashes constantly. Just not a good experience in my opinion. N-Gage, a phone and a video game system. Too bad you had to remove the battery whenever you wanted to change games. The N-Gage could have been revolutionary, to be honest. It's basically the early prototype for the PSP and Switch. What really killed it was that it was a bulky Game Boy Advance pretending to be a phone. Hell, even the N95 was a great phone for its time. In my opinion, the main issue was the phone and gaming parts were essentially separate. There was no real flow between these two functions, so made it a very janky experience. That and holding a taco to your ear to talk looked pretty damn weird. It was certainly a cool idea, but in the end a GBA had better gaming experience, and pretty much any phone kicked its ass for the phone experience. Metaverse. Metaverse is the new future that nobody has thought of before. VR chat is basically the same but better graphics. VR chat won because it 1. Came first by several years. 2. Supports basically any headset or no headset. 3. Has legs by default and supports full body tracking. 4. Has basically infinite user-created worlds and avatars. 5. Has tremendously better graphics. 6. Absolutely packed full of femboy furries. My first experience on VR chat, I encountered a big hipped fishnet femboy dragon furry. I'm going to buy a VR headset now. BlackBerry without the keyboard. Fell flat on its face. Too Bad was a great Canadian company and a world leader in mobile devices until they got so arrogant they thought they knew what the consumer wanted but didn't. Bruh, buy BlackBerry. I miss the BlackBerry era. The way they turned from business professional phones to the hot new thing at my school because of BBM. Everyone had one and it was all, "What's your PIN?" I would genuinely buy one now for the nostalgia and BCM over having everything available at my fingertips, severely impacts my productivity LMAO. ETA, Lana Del Rey has a super old unreleased song called BBM Baby, which always takes me back whenever I hear it. It's super upbeat and fun. They were without question the highest quality smartphone before iPhone and Android completely took over. Even the feature phone BlackBerries had the brick breaker game that can't be replicated the same without that touchpad. Modular phones. I can remember reading about how being able to choose and change the different modules based on your phone needs, better camera, better speakers etc. was gonna kill the iPhone. Kind of a shame really, they sounded pretty cool. The Fairphone 4 is modular but for repair rather than upgrade. The LG G5 phone was an attempt at this. They had an improved camera mod, and I believe speakers too. Honestly, the reason I got one was because you could take the battery out and put a freshly charged one in. They even sold battery docking ports so you could charge multiple batteries at once. I really miss being able to easily exchange my phone battery. This probably isn't true, but my conspiracy theory is that Apple killed the modular phone. The inherent inefficiencies and technical lock-in of a modular phone killed the modular phone. A fully integrated phone would always be able to fit more features in a smaller package at a far smaller cost. A more abstract technical problem is that for all those components to work together, you need a standardized data bus for them to communicate. And that bus is going to need constantly upgraded revisions. Within a few years you'll have some very unhappy customers who upgraded their SoC and now their camera doesn't work, and every time you upgrade a part you have research its compatibility with your other parts. Also, software support would be scattershot as different versions of Android from different vendors would have different levels of support. You need Cubadroid installed for your speakers, but you need Droiderific for your Wi-Fi module. A single unified system requires far less R&D than trying to support an exponentially growing list of part matrices. New Coke. The company changed the recipe, and people were so mad that within 3 months they brought back the old one, which is why today it's called Coke Classic. Well, call it New Slurm, and when everyone hates it, well, bring back Slurm Classic and make billions. New Coke did better in blind taste testies. It was an objectively better product, but here we have a classic example of humans being resistant to change. Unsure of how true this one is, but I seem to recall hearing that New Coke became the basis of Diet Coke. Actually, in Malcolm Gladwell's book Blink, he talks about New Coke, and mentions that one of the major flaws of those taste tests was that you only would have a sip. The sweeter beverage would often win with just a sip, but not so much if drinking the whole can. Which is one reason why the Pepsi Challenge, which New Coke was a response to, often chose Pepsi. Granted, it also then talked about how the name, product history plays a part, so the sweetness doesn't explain it all. Li-Fi. Wi-Fi that works with light reflections. All reflective surfaces in the house must be eliminated, so safe to assume it wasn't very successful amongst people who use their phone in the toilet. Wi-Fi that works with light reflections? Would you want more reflective surfaces to enable Wi-Fi in more areas of your house? Thing is, no surface is 100% reflective, the extra reflective surfaces just distort and weaken the signal to the point where you can't use the internet at all. And light from external sources also interfere with the signal, so it's ultimately not very good technology. Zune. Fun fact, the Zune lasted longer than the Confederacy. Yet, oddly, nobody built a statue honoring the Zune. So, America is racist. In about 100 years, the daughters of Microsoft will raise funds for a statue of brave, honorable Zune, a maligned victim of the war of Apple aggression. But in reality, it's just a symbol of their lasting worship of the outdated, unjust, end-stage capitalism culture that they remember mostly because they were the ones in power then, and hate how lesser folk, aka everybody but them, now have the happiness that was once rightfully theirs. Thank you for watching all the way until the end, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment any flops you can think of. Click the video above if you want to continue to watch my content. Until next time.